Welcome to another edition of Talking Hoops, where we'll be breaking down the local boys high school scene. Mark-Kern, joined as always by David Cassilo and Tim Bielik. And guys, had a fun weekend this weekend at the Dunk for Diabetes Shootout. We had 9 local teams, a lot of crazy games, great finishes, even some exciting coaches to watch. So let's just go ahead and what was your biggest takeaway, Tim, from the Dunk for Diabetes?
I think the biggest takeaway is we saw that VASC is not exactly an invincible team, and we saw that in the poll, with them dropping out of number 1 for the first time all season. We know VASC might be the best team in Ohio, but the truth is they're not an invincible team, and we saw that this week with losses to Oak Hill, McDuffie. We saw that they can have some problems against some teams with size. And I mean, let's face it, there's few teams in the country that had the size McDuffie has with Amari Spellman and, of course, 7'2" Jordy Tishamanga in there.
That was definitely a Division I looking front court for sure. Dave, what did you take from this weekend?
I took away just how much Eds has improved. I saw them last in December, and I thought there were some question marks, but they put a really nice game against McDuffie, could have won that game. And they just got the great front line, the backcourt's improved, and this is a team that's really looking like a Division I state title contender again.
All right, we'll talk maybe another Division I state title contender is Lorain, undefeated. Tim, you were at the game on Friday against Bedford. Looked like an exciting finish for sure. How big a win was that? This is another game. Lorain's found themselves kind of dominated early, but they've been in some tough games recently.
Yeah, no doubt. This is kind of the meat of their schedule, and you mentioned exciting game. Right now, I know it's mid-January, but I want to put that right there in Game of the Year consideration. It was a game that was a little back and forth for 2.5 quarters. Lorain goes on a nice run to take a 9-point lead in the fourth. Bedford with an 18-2 run to take the lead. They were up 7 with about a minute and a half to go. And I think that's when, Lorain proved that they are a quality team, because it takes a lot of poise and a lot of character to make that kind of a comeback. And it proved to me that I mentioned last week who was going to get the signature win. Lorain got that signature win, and for good reason. I think now you can put them in that discussion with St. Ed's, Garfield Heights, Mentor, and Shaker as Division I contenders.
All right, Dave, I think Tim kind of stole the show right there. Anything else?
I think it was a very big win for them, but I don't think it was a win where I walked away and said, I feel very confident that Lorain can go far in the very, very tough district. When I look at that game, the fact that it is a home game, and really they should have lost that game. I mean, Bedford really messed up down the stretch. They came away, Lorain got a little lucky. I still think Lorain is a top 10 team in Division I in the state, but, can they beat St. Edward and St. Ignatius and potentially a really good defensive team in Brunswick and a team like Berea-Midpark in their district? It's a very, very tough district.
That's going to be tough for any team to get out there, so definitely whoever wins that will show they earned it. And let's go back to St. Edwards real quick. They were able, we watched McDuffie Saturday night, against Villa Angela St. Joseph. They were really able to take the Vikings out of their game early. But I was very impressed with St. Edwards. They really hung in the whole game. They had some runs. Obviously, we talked about the coaching, some antics on the sideline. Just a crazy game to be at. Tim, what did you take out of that game, and how was St. Edward able to compete against McDuffie?
Well, I think you kind of mentioned it. McDuffie took VHJ out of their game on Saturday night, and, they were very physical with them. On Sunday, I thought, they tried to do the same thing to Eds, but I thought Eds showed a lot of composure. They didn't try and they just shook off all the intimidation factor and just played basketball. And they had a size disadvantage. I mean, no question about it. Their tallest guy was about 6'8", 6'9". But the other reason I thought they were strong is, the versatility of the forwards they have. Kipper Nichols and Mike Ryan can shoot the jumper. Mike Ryan has added some nice three-point range. Funderburk has the ability to shoot some jumpers, and the backcourt continues to grow. I mean, we're talking a St. Ed's team that's now 7-1 in January. They've really turned the corner, I think.
And you said their front court, Tim. Not only were they shorter, they also 50, 70 pounds lighter than the McDuffie front court. Dave, why did you think St. Edwards was so successful?
I think it was because they play smart, they play composed. I think when you watch that game, both teams take the personality and demeanor of their coach. Coach Flannery is very, very composed on the sidelines, and you see that in his team. And, I think that goes a long way. When you're patient, you wait for the right shot. You know that you can get through stretches because it's a game of runs. And I think St. Edward is well positioned to do some damage next couple months.
Definitely. Game 63-62, kind of a controversial ending with a questionable no call. But I'm with you. I think the backcourt was tremendous to St. Edward. The way, obviously, their coach was saying don't let Sean Flannery score. And I think if you're Eric Flannery, he's not your number one offensive scorer. So definitely
a little controversial. I mean, let's not forget St. Ed's was up 18-0 in free throws in the first half.
They were very true, and missed some free throws. Kipper Nickel picked up. It was just a crazy game to be at. Had everything. So I think we can all agree we came out more impressed with St. Edward than maybe before the game. So definitely a great showing for the Division I state champions. And you guys talked about how St. Edward's made a lot of improvements. Tim, who's another team that's really improved since the beginning of the year?
I'm looking at East-Tech. I think the Scarabs have kind of flown under the radar a bit. Basically what they've done is they're just taking care of the business, and they're in the Senate. They're the defending Senate champions in a conference that is going to have some challenges in the playoffs with teams like John Hay and Rhodes, not too far behind them. I think the Scarabs are just quietly taking care of business. They just won the games in the Senate, and they've been putting up some big numbers. I believe a handful of 100-point games in the last few weeks. That combination of Anthony Carmen, Markel Johnson, Corey Cullum just continues to gel more and more each game.
All right, and Dave?
Yeah, I agree. I think East-Tech, although it's kind of tough to say because they're not playing the best competition right now, but I think what this allows them is to try out some things, work on some things in a situation that, to be quite honest, is like an elevated scrimmage. I mean, when they're playing some of these teams. So they've got the Senate playoffs next week. They'll probably play Rhodes, which will be a test. Rhodes really pushed them in the first game of the season. So we'll see. I mean, East-Tech's got some nice non-conference games coming up in February.
All right, now we're going to kind of do what we do on every show where we kind of break down local best at each position or certain statistic. All right, who's the best passer in the area, Tim?
I'm going to go back to Lorain. I got to go with Devon Andrews. I mean, when I look at him, what he does on the court, it's almost kind of a point forward type of role. He's a true playmaker on the team. He scores and he rebounds, but he also has great court vision. He has a great basketball IQ. He has the ability to find teammates. And when you go to a Lorain game, you are guaranteed at least one or two Devon Andrews and Rashad Berry alley-oops. They just have tremendous chemistry, and a lot of that is due to Devon Andrews' court vision.
All right, Dave?
I'm going to go someone else on Lorain. I'm going to go with Eddie Williamson. He's the point guard. He's the team's quarterback in football. He just seems to have a knack for finding players in transition, finding players when they're running a half-court set. With him, sort of, to me, he's sort of like a Malcolm Walters on St. Edward last year. He knows he doesn't really have to score. He just needs to set up his teammates.
And you need to have those type of guys, definitely. And like I said, we'll be joined by Coach John Rositano in a couple minutes. But who's the best on-ball defender, Tim?
I'm going to go with another guy, that had a nice game in Dunkford Ibis. I'm going to go with Brett Swinnerton in Berea-Midpark. When you look at him, it's almost like he's got a Tayshaun Prince type of build. He's tall, he's lean, he's got long arms, but he's just got quick hands. He had 4 steals against North Cannover. 4 steals. He had really quick hands. He had the steal on the inbounds pass, about 6 seconds left to win the game. He's just a very quick guy and a tough guy to get around just because he's got a long wingspan.
All right, Dave?
I'm going to go with Willie Jackson. I think when you look in this area, Issa Ahmad's been probably the best, if not him or Carlton Bragg's been the best player the last 2 years. And every time that Shaker plays Garfield, Willie Jackson does a tremendous job on him. He did a great job on John Teskey. He can guard guys at different heights, and I think he's a great defender.
I think, what you said, his versatility on defense definitely makes him one of the best in the area. And then what Tuesday game are you guys looking forward to most?
I'm looking at St. V. Warrensville-Heights. This was a game last year. I think Warrensville-Heights raised a lot of eyebrows by upsetting St. V. at their place. Now they're going to Warrensville. And if you like guard play, this is the game you want to be at. I mean, St. V, you got Josh Williams, you got Henry Badley, you got R.J. Jones coming back, and then Warrensville, you got Yavari Hall and Brandon Peters. I mean, if you're looking for quality guard play, this might be the best game of the night, dare I say the week, when it comes to just pure guard matchups.
I'm sure the Irish haven't forgot that loss last year. Dave?
I'm going to go game a little off the map. Western Reserve Academy and Archbishop Holman. 2 teams that are playing well right now. Holman's been doing really well after a rough start to the season. And both of them, as you said, they're looking for a signature win. And this game's at Western Reserve Academy. We kind of find out how good they are. They blew an opportunity to beat Walsh Jesuit earlier in the year. So it's a big game. We'll see who wins it.
All right, and now we are joined by Lorain coach John Rositano. Coach, how are you doing?
Good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Coach, obviously a very emotional and exciting victory against Bedford. Now that you're a couple days away from that game, what do you remember most from that game?
Well, I remember the way it was a game of runs, guys. I mean, we went on a run to take a 9-point lead. Then they went on a run to take a 7-point lead with a minute and a half to go. Then we finished out with 11-3 run to win the game in, like you said, an emotional fashion. What I take out of it is our guys didn't quit. We got down 7. They kept battling, kept fighting, and somehow we pulled it out at the last second, and we're very grateful for it.
Coach, we talked about how this is you just went through a very difficult stretch with Warrensville-Heights and Medina and then Bedford. What did you learn most about your team through those 3 games?
Well, I think we learned that we can beat very good basketball teams. We were challenged the first game of the year over in Wilmington against Newark, and then we had some stretches where we played competition that we need to be tested. And the last 3 games we were tested by, like you said, Warrensville, Medina, and Bedford, 3 excellent basketball teams, and we came on top. And I think we learned that we're a very good basketball team.
Coach, when you look at Lorain, everybody knows Devon Andrews, but probably the most underrated part of the team is Rashad Berry, and just his athleticism, his strength, and his ability on the floor. How important is he in addition to Devon Andrews?
Well, his athleticism, his ability, and all these things he has. But I tell you what, people don't know about Rashad is that the kid plays with unbelievable passion and emotion, and he brings that to the rest of the guys on the team, and that's a quality that's, it sometimes is overlooked, but Rashad has that intangible quality, a great kid that brings that emotion, passion to our team, and it really helps us.
All right, Coach, obviously you guys are having a tremendous season so far, undefeated. When you look at your team, what's maybe one thing you really keep harping on your team to get better at?
Well, I think we have to get better at 2 things. I think our half-court defense has to improve. When teams settle in, beat our pressure, I think our half-court defense has to get better, and we're working hard at it. And another thing is our fall shooting is hurting us. We're only at 58% as a team right now. We got to get that up to the mid-high 60s to beat the high-quality opponents that we're going to be playing down the road. So I think half-court defense and our fall shooting are 2 things that we definitely got to improve on.
Coach, here we are. There's only 7 games left, and you haven't lost one. What do you need to do to, keep the focus game by game and, not have this team start being suckered in by can we go undefeated type talk?
Well, I think the guys are well-grounded. They're humble. They're hungry. We keep preaching the 1 game at a time type thing, and we keep telling them, don't look at wins and losses, just keep doing the right things on the court, and usually the scoreboard takes care of itself. When you're playing together, when you're playing with a lot of emotion, and you got great chemistry, you work hard, the scoreboard generally takes care of itself. So that's what we preach to the guys, and it's worked so far, and hopefully it continues to work.
Coach, I was down there on Friday night to see the game, and it's fair to say it's probably the loudest environment I've ever been a part of. Southview, the old Southview gym was rocking. How have you and your team embraced, the way the community supported this team all season?
Well, guys, Lorain is a great basketball town. I mean, through the 80s and 90s, it supported 3 teams at that time very well, and now we got the one high school, Lorain, and the Lorain community was just begging for a winner in basketball, and we provided that, and now the community's coming out in record numbers. I mean, I think we sold out the last 3 home games, and it's really great to see. It's bringing the community together. They're behind us 100%, and it's a real special time for Lorain and Lorain High basketball, and we're embracing it.
All right, Coach, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck to your team the rest of the season.
Okay, thanks for coverage, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, obviously Lorain, a tremendous season. Tim, you're really high on this team. If there's one thing Coach kind of hinted at half-court defense and free throw shooting, what's one thing you still want to see from this team to prove they can really make a deep run potentially to state?
What I want to see is, them develop a better, shooting threat. We know this team is excellent in transition. They force a lot of turnovers. If you get into a running game with this team, they're so hard to beat. When it gets to a half-court game, I want to see, if there's a guy who can hit the outside shot consistently, who can hit from 15 and from three-point range consistently. If they find that to go along with that ability to get turnovers and run in transition, this team can get to even another level, which is scary.
All right, and they're pretty high ranked in our top 25. Dave, kind of for the first time, you had to do some moving at the top of the poll. Just talk about the new top 5.
Yeah, well, with the success that St. Vincent-St-Mary has been having, coupled by 2 losses this week by Villa St. Joseph, albeit against very good competition, the Irish are our new number 1. first time all year we've made a change at the top there. St. Vincent-st-Mary, when you look at not just what they've done in terms of record, but who they've beaten, they've just gone through a murderer's row type of schedule. And what they're doing is strategically scheduling some of the best teams in Division II. So they're beating the teams like Dayton Dunbar and Thurgood Marshall and Central Catholic. So really a lot to like about what they've done.
Yep, and at the Dunk for Diabetes, actually yesterday, I stayed and watched Cam Timken against Thurgood Marshall. That is a very talented team. They blew a big lead against Timken, but for St. Vincent-St-Mary to really handle them the way they did, that shows definitely worthy of the number one spot. And then Tim, who's a team that's kind of rose in the 15 to 20 area?
I think, Green, even though they're staying at 14, they just continue to impress. It's about defense for the Bulldogs. They're just so good defensively. We've talked about it. They're active defensively. But Friday night against Cloverleaf, they proved they could shoot the three ball. 16 three-pointers, 7 by Austin Marciniak, who's one of the better shooters out there. They can shoot the basketball to go along with that defense.
All right, and that kind of leads into the final part of the show. We have a few undefeated teams, obviously St. Vincent-St-Mary. What's the one team, start with you, Dave, that surprised you the most that they're undefeated? Could it be St. Vincent-St-Mary?
Probably, yeah. I think you're right. It is St. Vincent-St-Mary. I mean, you've got Lorain and Walsh Jesuit and Green. But when I look at undefeated teams, I look at their schedule. And the Irish have tested themselves the most, and they've passed every single test. And I think, they'd be undefeated playing any of those 14 schedules, where I don't know if those other 3 teams would if they played the Irishes.
Tim, is there a team that's maybe surprised you? Kind of mentioned Green just a second ago.
Yeah, but I'm going to kind of go with Walsh Jesuit. The Warriors, we talk about passing tests. They've passed every single test they've had to face and then some. I mean, the North Coast League is a very tough conference. They've made it, I don't want to say they made it look easy, but they've just been fantastic, especially defensively. I don't think they've given up 60 points in a game all season. And through about 14 games, that's a very, very difficult thing to do.
All right, guys, I'm going to leave with this final question. At the end of the regular season, how many of those 4 teams are still undefeated?
I'm going to say 1. I'm going to say Green is undefeated. I think the other 3 lose at some point.
Tim?
I'm going to say 2. Green and Lorain stay undefeated.
Tim's all aboard the Lorain bandwagon, so we'll definitely see how those predictions come out. And be sure to stay tuned for coverage at cleveland.com. Wednesday, we have the podcast where we'll kind of preview this weekend's games. For Tim Bielik and Dave Cassilo, I'm Mark Kern.